mean they won't surrender. There's going to become a point where they have no weapons left or no food left to eat, no weapons left to fight, where they will surrender. Otherwise, the war will never end. And my worry is that when the negotiating team is targeted, and if Qatar does not continue, facilitating those negotiations, it makes it very difficult to end the war.
It doesn't, actually. If Israel would have actually conducted this war properly in the first place, this war would have probably been over by now. But because of the Biden administration and restraints that they actually ended up imposing on Israel, such as when Israel wanted to go into Rafah, maybe our U.S.
They went into Rafah and destroyed it. Rafah is destroyed.
But after months and months of waiting, in which time an
so
American
that's the proper way, is destroy a whole city.
No, but that's what Hamas gave the option of.
You just
Hamas
said it was.
turned that entire place into a war zone. Listen, Max, I don't know if you've ever fought a war or you've ever even gotten a freaking fist fight in your life, but it doesn't happen, number one, fighting with equality. You don't win a fight by going blow for blow and back and forth. You do it with overwhelming fire superiority. That's how wars are fought. Genocide. This isn't a scalpel. This isn't a scalpel. This is a military. It's made to
I don't know if you know how people who are fighting to defend. And then when you take it a step
further,
Matt, I don't know if you take it a step
further and you talk about the infrastructure specifically that Hamas has built into Gaza, turning the entire place, turning the entire Gaza Strip into a massive defensive fighting position, rigging explosives inside of civilian buildings, shooting their own civilians, taking hostages, having endless miles of tunnels, not only around Gaza Strip, but in and out of Egypt as well. Yes,
well, Matt,
some of these things have to happen in order to kill the enemy that's trying to kill you.
Well, I mean, I think Israel needs to be demilitarized and de-radicalized because it's waging war on the entire region, as it has since 1948, when it ethnically cleansed 750,000 Palestinians, mostly to the Gaza Strip. But you wouldn't understand what it's like to fight a war to defend your own land. You fought fake imperialist wars to defend Dick Cheney's stock options. So you can't get into the mentality of the people in Gaza, of the military.
Actually, I can't. See, that's where you're wrong. See, because as a Green Beret, I actually live with, no, see, that's where you're wrong. Because as a Green Beret, I actually lived and helped liberate villages that were taken over by ISIS militants. That's what I did, and I lived side by side with those. Hold on, and I lived side by side with those people, and I fought side by side with those people to get rid of radical Islam.
They would have all
and you get very embedded in the culture.
Syrian forces.
No, they wouldn't have been. Absolutely not. That is you in your own freaking mind.
Bringing it back, just bringing it.
Let's talk about what you're doing right now and what I'm doing right now. Because
what I'm doing right now
is the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation
actual information. Yes, let's talk about GHF. You want to do that?
Let's talk about GHF because you seem to have a very strong interest in GHF. GHF is a group that has replaced the UN food system. It has led to a famine there. And I want to just ask a specific question here because around 2,000 people have been killed seeking aid at GHF sites by the Israeli army. The BBC
Allegedly.
Just reported that UG Solutions has hired 10 members of the Infidel Motorcycle Club, which is an anti-Muslim bike club. These are people who hate Muslims who are working in a Muslim
Anthony
area.
Aguilar, right? That's who reported it, Anthony Aguilar.
Do you have any affiliation with? Do you have any affiliation with UG Solutions?
Is that your source for that? Is Aguilar your source for that?
No, the BBC. But do you have any affiliation
the BBC,
with UG
and who
Solutions?
is the BBC's source for that?
Do you have any
Who is the
affiliation
BBC
with
source?
UG
Who is the
Solutions?
BBC? No, I don't. Who is the BBC source?
Anthony,
I haven't collected a document.
Anthony
So the
Aguilar,
BBC source was Anthony Aguilar, the guy that lied to me on my podcast, the guy that has defamed himself numerous times. He went back and forth on his own statements so many times. And this kid named AKA Amir, his actual name's Abood, is alive. And so that's who your source is going to be for this?
Did you reach out to Anthony Aguilar on behalf of UG Solutions? Because that's what
I did
Aguilar
not.
claims.
No, I did not reach out.
You have no connection to GHF at all?
No, I don't. So number one,
So you're not a
reached out to
consultant for
UG
UG
Solutions
Solutions.
No, I'm not. I reached out
That
to
would be a
UG
huge scandal
Solutions.
because-
Do you want an answer to your question, or do you just want to sit here and ramble?
It would be a huge scandal if you were connected to GHF.
I'm absolutely not connected to
because
GHF
on your Twitter account,
or receive a dime. And by the way, he said that I received money and he had proof. I'm still waiting on that because I haven't received a damn dime from them, and I don't receive a dime from anybody else. And I hope your stuff's clear there, Max.
You take a great interest in defending GHF, and at the same time,
I take a great interest in defending the truth from liars like Anthony Aguilar,
who
lied. He's a liar.
At the same
time, that is a fact. As a matter of fact, the president of the the president of the Special Forces Association parachute team said, and I quote, "He is a pathological liar."
Well, at the same time as you're obsessingly attacking Aguilar, and I'm not Aguilar, I can't personally defend him. At the same time as you're doing that, you're on your Twitter
account.
You
used him as a source.
You were
so,
on your
yeah,
Twitter
calling
Muhammad a
source.
pedophile.
That is an actual.
You are
that is an actual
calling,
thing. What do you call somebody that marries a 6-year-old? And then consummates the marriage at 9.
Why are so many people who are
what do you call somebody that marries a 6-year-old and consummates their marriage at 9?
This is a scandal.
What is the actual definition? Because words have meaning.
I think
Tardio. What is somebody that has sex with a 9-year-old girl?
One last,
Max?
guys. Moving away.
Are you okay? No. I'm curious, Max. Are you okay with grown men having sex with 9-year-old girls?
These are the people that defend GHF. I just wanted to get this on the record. Tardio is the person who defends GHF, and he's out here to prove that the Muslim prophet Muhammad is a pedophile, and they bring these people as influencers,
and that's my own religious belief. Just like they don't think
this is
like
a criminal operation run by people who hate the population of
Max, I want to go to the question is, guys, I want to ask one final 2 questions back on the Qatar strikes. I know there's
I'm glad we got that on the record.
Yes, Max, that's correct. On the record, men who have sex with 9-year-old girls are pedophiles. And men who get arrested for it in the United States should be tried and.
I think did the producers mute? I can't hear you guys unless it's muted on my end. I'm not sure if you can hear me. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear? Yeah, I think this is the first time they've used the mute button. I think we've never used it before. So I just want to go back to the next question, Max. As a final point I want to talk about is what happens next. The thing that surprised me the most about this is that for the first time, Israel, they struck Syria, but Syria, initially had the Assad regime. They've struck Yemen. Yemen, the Houthis were striking Israel. They've struck Lebanon. Well, Hezbollah was striking Israel. They've struck Iran. Iran was funding Hezbollah, was funding the Houthis. We've spoken about this. But now they've struck an American ally, a non-NATO ally. So my question to you is, where are the red lines for Israel and what happens next? And what happens to the US-Gulf relationship? And I can't hear you. I'm not sure if the team could unmute. I'm not sure or if it's a glitch on my end because I cannot hear. I think it's a glitch. I cannot hear. You're back. Yeah, Max, go ahead, please. Sorry, on that last question here.
Well, there are no red lines on Israel. There never really have been real red lines. That's why it's been able to bring hundreds of thousands of settlers into the West Bank, which is now under a wave of settler terror, why it's been able to build a wall in and around the West Bank, why it's been able to place Gaza under siege, occupy 300,000 Palestinians in East Jerusalem, and steal the Syrian Golan Heights while now occupying the other side of the Syrian Golan Heights, why it was able to occupy and invade Lebanon in 1982, slaughter civilians in an aid center in Qana in Lebanon in 1996. I could go on for the next hour about all the crimes that Israel's been able to commit without any red lines, but now it basically controls the Trump incorporation. It controls Trump through the figure of Miriam Adelson, who's donated
Trump wasn't too happy. But Max, Trump wasn't too happy about this. He said, I'm not thrilled about the whole situation. It's not a good situation. We are not thrilled about the way that went down. Very unhappy about every aspect.
Trump greenlit that attack. The U.S. greenlit that attack that's been widely reported in the Jerusalem Post. The Israeli government has openly said it. And Trump had no choice. He's controlled by Netanyahu and his cutouts inside the U.S. And I think this was a really instructive forum for everyone watching to see who is defending Israel at this point. They are people like Matt Tardio, who defend the killing of journalists, who defend the killing of rescuers, who think the entire population has to be removed because of terrorism, who call for even online influencers they don't like to be killed, and who see no red lines anywhere and want us to live in a law of the jungle. And it's Israel's law. It's a lawless world under the control of a Zionist regime that will accept no resistance whatsoever and demands total subjugation from all of its neighbors. I mean, look at what they're doing to Syria, which already surrendered and which is welcoming members of Trump Incorporation to push it into the Abraham Accords, and Israel is attacking Syria day after day. So we're going to continue to witness these attacks by Israel on the entire region, including terrorist attacks, assassinations, and the slaughter of the population in Gaza as long as Israel remains an ethno-supremacist entity. According to the Likud charter, since we're talking about charters, the Likud charter defines Israel as an entity anywhere between the Nile and the Jordan River. So it's an expansive entity that will even go beyond the Jordan River if it's allowed to. And that's why people in the region take up arms against it, to defend themselves against this death cult.
So Matt, just on the point that Max made, why continue striking Syria? Syria is not attacking Israel anymore. The new government, as much as you might hate them or disagree with a lot of their stances or previous stances, they are trying to improve relationships with their neighbors. They are trying to improve their relationship with the US and potentially with Israel. Why continue striking Syria? And also with Qatar, why not assassinate those members through other means without using fighter jets? Like they did in, I think, 2010 in Dubai. Mossad have significant capabilities.
So when you start talking about that, right, you got to have like specific people on the ground in the right place at the right time in order to make it happen. That also puts their lives in danger in order to do that. Specifically, we're talking about Qatar, to have those people on ground in order to do that. You're relying on a lot of human intelligence to make sure that those people are where they're supposed to be at, to make sure that those munitions fall where they're supposed to fall. And Israel, honestly, likely just didn't want to put anybody at risk in order to make that happen. So I couldn't tell you what the decisions were made because I don't have access to all that intelligence, why they chose to drop bombs versus, sending a team on the ground in order to take care of them. And I know that the preferred method would definitely put people on the ground in order to put bullets in them. That way we could show the faces and say, yes, look, they're dead. And then as far as Syria goes, protecting the Druze is very, very important to Israel and to the Druze population inside of Israel. And
but that battle ended. That battle ended a few weeks ago, no?
Right, but you also have some people that have been taken hostage by them, and then you also have other different factions that have been moving down there over towards them. The Druze have set up different checkpoints and things around Al-Suwaida, but they are also facing some other issues and problems. And when you talk about like bombing them and things like that, with the bombing outside of the palace, that's why, when you end up having 2 Israeli bombs drop outside of the presidential palace inside of Syria, and then all of a sudden the attacks end up stopping on the Druze, it's pretty telling about who's pulling the strings. You also have numerous chemical weapons facilities that are still in place over inside Syria. A lot of people think that they ended up getting destroyed earlier on before Jelani took control of the country. That's not true. There's tons of them that are actually still left intact. They weren't able to strike all of them, so all of those things are still in existence.
Where are they?
Those are, quite frankly, just